I feel that this awareness is not being adhered to, I'll interrupt proceedings to advise members. In order to ensure the sound's quality in the chamber is the best it can be, please can I ask you to try and speak towards the microphone nearest to you and ensure that any papers or devices are not in the way of the microphone picking up your voice. We are live streaming this meeting, and therefore the microphones will be active when members are speaking, and the cameras will be broadcasting until the meeting closes. A list of all the members who are present will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. I understand that we are also having members of the Youth Council with us this evening. Welcome to you all. As this is a very busy meeting, I would like to remind members to be succinct as possible in their speeches and questions so that we can cover all the business we need to do. Before we start the formal meeting, we will be taking some time to remember Councillor Gillian Arundel, who sadly passed away in November, and inviting a few of her colleagues to speak. I'd like to now call on Councillor Adam Hugg to speak first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. It's been a few months since Gillian passed, and all of us have had a moment to grieve and consider her life. And I want to not repeat those words that I've said in previous forums, but to use this opportunity to briefly honour the memory of her as a councillor. She was a remarkable individual whose dedication to public service and unwavering commitment left an indelible mark on Westminster in the few short years that she was a councillor, but as a community activist for many years before. Elected in 2022 as the first Labour councillor for the newly formatted Vincent Square ward, I'm so sorry, but yeah. Gillian quickly became a respected local activist, assisting residents with issues ranging from housing and welfare to domestic violence. Her compassionate nature and tireless advocacy provided solace and support to countless individuals and families. As lead member for Air Quality and Disability Champion, Gillian was instrumental in promoting environmental initiatives and championing the rights of people with disabilities across the city. She was someone who worked to bring particularly women from all different backgrounds in our city into public life, holding regular tea and coffee mornings with them. And she was a passionate supporter of local organisations tackling homelessness in her ward. And I know that I'm going to cede some of my time to make sure that her very close friend and colleague, Lisa Begum, is able to speak in more detail. But I want to speak on behalf of all of the Labour group to be clear that Gillian's colleagues remember her not only as that passionate campaigner, but as someone with a wicked sense of... I will make sure that this is being mic'd correctly, but she is not only being remembered as a passionate campaigner, but someone with a wicked sense of humour. As someone whose friendship was absolutely rock solid. She was passionate about what she believed in. We would argue, disagree, but she was an incredibly loyal friend who was steadfast in her principles and was a privilege to work with. So today we not only mourn the loss of that dedicated public servant, but we want to celebrate and will continue to celebrate a life of a woman whose legacy will continue to inspire us. While her picture may hang in the National Portrait Gallery for many more years to come, I hope her memory will be held in our hearts for even longer. So let us remember Gillian Arundel for her unwavering commitment to justice, equality, the people of Vincent Square Ward, and those who knew and loved her. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hugg. I now call on Councillor David Harvey to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It was absolutely clear the first time I met her that Gillian wanted to be a councillor to help her local community. At her funeral, Councillor Short and I were incredibly moved by the tributes, particularly from her brother, from her daughter, and also Councillor Begum as well. And it was through that as well that we caught instances of that humour and friendship which Councillor Hugg mentioned. The crematorium hall was absolutely full of people from every part of her life, and we were honoured to be there. We learned a little about her commitment to other areas of the voluntary sector. She didn't do easy courses. She worked in incredibly difficult and challenging voluntary areas that take inner toughness as well as compassion to work in, and she clearly had both of those. Many residents of Westminster and of Vincent Square are going to miss her, and they'll miss her as a friend and as people she helped. And she reminds me too, from the conversations we had, that much more unites us than divides us. Gillian's death shocked all of us. She will be missed. Please let our thoughts go out to her friends and her family, and may she rest in peace. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And finally, can I ask Councillor Lisa Begum to say a few words? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I first met Gillian at a Labour Party meeting. An intense conversation was taking place, and while everyone sat as spectators, Gillian was quick to intervene and so eloquently came to the defence of a fellow member, silencing the entire room with just a few words, and the meeting swiftly moved on to the next agenda item. I sat in admiration at the command she held, at how direct she was and how fearless she was in speaking the truth. Gillian was a loyal friend, outspoken in the face of injustice, and a fierce advocate for the community, especially for the most vulnerable. Does anyone have tissues? Gillian was an integral part of Westminster Labour, thank you, holding various positions through the years. As Women's Officer and BAME Officer, Gillian held coffee mornings and invited various speakers, including MPs and grassroots organisations, and facilitated lively discussions on topics that mattered to people. She also empowered local women by giving them opportunities and connecting people. In the weekends, she would hold stalls outside Pimlico Station and engage with members of the public. Gillian never did anything half-heartedly. She took on every role with so much zeal and enthusiasm. In May 2022, Gillian was elected as the first Labour councillor in Vincent Ward. She was disability champion and the lead for air quality. In her time as a councillor, Gillian worked tirelessly for her constituents. She supported residents in areas of homelessness, rough sleeping, domestic violence, refugee rights, racial injustice, and disability discrimination. Gillian also supported charities in delivering much-needed services. The Pimlico Angels run warm hubs and lunches for the homeless in Gillian's ward, and we will always honour Gillian's memory by ensuring her good work continues. She was also a staunch supporter of the local Sudanese women's group and a trustee of the Abbey Centre, where she held surgeries for rough sleepers. Her activism knew no pause, but of all the things she did, I will always remember when she told me that she went straight from the delivery room to an anti-racist protest with her newborn daughter. Gillian spent an entire lifetime in political activism. As well as having the honour of working with Gillian, she was also a dear friend. We spoke every day, sitting in coffee shops, having intense discussions about life, about politics, and the changes she wanted to see in the world. But as well as all the serious stuff, Gillian had an amazing sense of humour. There wasn't a conversation we had where we didn't find ourselves in hysterics of laughter. Gillian had a love for life and brought positivity to everyone she met, whether alleviating their burden or making those around her laugh. Her energy was infectious. It's been 2 months since we have lost Gillian, and she leaves a great void in the Labour group and the council. Gillian excelled as a councillor. She showed extreme empathy at DHP panels and strongly scrutinised officers at policy and scrutiny committees, and had great relationships with her residents. She will be sorely missed by all. Gillian may no longer be with us, but her memory and all the work she did will remain.
Thank you, Councillor Begum. And thank you all for those moving thoughts and memories. I now would ask members to stand and join me in a minute's silence in remembrance of Councillor Arundel. Thank you. Appointment of Relief Chair. As I may need to vacate the chair during the meeting, I propose that Councillor Hamza Tazal be chosen to take the chair as necessary. May I please have a seconder for my motion?
Seconded.
Councillor Ormsby has seconded my motion that Councillor Tazal chairs the meeting as necessary. Unless any member objects, the motion will be deemed to have been agreed. If anybody has an objection, please say so now. Thank you. Councillor Tazal, please can you join me on the dais? Agenda item 2, minutes from the previous meeting. Unless any member wishes to raise a point of order relating to the accuracy of the minutes, I will consider that members are content that I sign the minutes of the last meeting. Could you please state now if you wish to raise a point of order? Thank you. The minutes are agreed. Agenda item 3. Lord Mayor's communications. These are as set out in the meeting papers. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. It is necessary to declare any interest in relation to the issues on which there will be a vote. These items were set out alongside the list of speakers on the order paper. Members need to declare an interest in the items selected for debate if they are speaking in that debate. All members in attendance were asked to identify in advance of the meeting if they have an interest to declare. If anyone has any disclosable pecuniary interests or any other significant interests to declare, please do so now. Agenda item 5. There is no statement on urgent matters. I'm not aware of any petitions. However, if anyone has one they would like to present, please mention this now. Thank you. Agenda item 7, public participation. Each member of the public selected for this item and here this evening has submitted a question which they will present to the relevant cabinet member. They will have up to 2 minutes to present their question. Then the relevant cabinet member will have up to 2 minutes to respond. Can I ask that when you are presenting your question, you adhere to the question you submitted, which you have a copy of? Can I also ask the cabinet members who are responding to be succinct in their responses? There will be no right of reply, and I ask that once you have received your response, you return to your seat. All questions asked and responses provided will be made available on the Council's website in the days after the meeting. So, can we start with question 1? Can I now ask Alan Trabb to join us at the front of the chamber to ask his question? Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. Why are you wasting substantial public money on consultants to review the public space improvements of Warwick Avenue? It is already a beautiful area and just requires some small planting and hanging baskets and an improvement around the central area near the tube station. Would it not be better we spend our council taxes handling the substantial number of homeless people in our area?
Thank you. I now ask the Cabinet Member for Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Barraclough, to respond.
Thanks, Alan. Welcome, and thanks for asking the question. However, I don't agree it's a beautiful area, and I don't agree that we're wasting money. If you look at photographs from the 1970s, you'll see the open space around Warwick Avenue Tube had an austere charm, But today, the area is cluttered and confusing. Bins, bikes and taxis compete for space, cars dominate, and pedestrians don't cross the road safely. The public realm is simply not at the high standards we'd expect in Westminster. So that's why Paddington Waterways and Maida Vale Society came up with ideas to improve the area. The previous administration had incorporated these ideas into its Paddington Place plan, which we then took and published 4 detailed options for Warwick Avenue last year based on these plans, and we carried out a large-scale public engagement, and I thank the hundreds of people that responded. The vast majority of the responses supported the ideas, and we'll be incorporating the feedback into detailed designs which will be ready in the summer. The key proposals would be to remove the median on Clifton Gardens and widen the pavements to stop the buses crashing into the flower beds, to tidy up the bin store, add green walls to the ventilation shaft, put the bike stands in more logical places, improve the drainage, plant more trees, add flower beds, and upgrade the pedestrian crossings to modern standards. I'm hoping this will include a new 4-way crossing at the junction with Blomfield Road. What's not to like? We make no apology for investing in Little Venice Ward, and make no apology for investing in high-quality and durable public realm that will look good for years to come. Our residents and our visitors deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trabb. You may now return to your seat. Thank you. Question 2. Can I now ask Darini Vedaratyanun to join us at the front of the chamber to ask her question? Thank you.
Nice pronunciation. Good evening, everyone. My question is about North Paddington. With the North Paddington program entering phase 2, which focuses on implementing interventions, after phase 1 dedicated to community listening, did the community listening phase help identify the structural and systemic causes behind inequality in quality of life, health, well-being, and life expectancy for local residents? What are the levers for change identified through community insights? With 20 million invested in this program, how does Westminster City Council plan to ensure that its interventions are grounded in these insights and address the root causes of these issues for lasting impact, rather than offering actions that only address symptoms or serve as a symbolic gesture?
Thank you. I now ask the Cabinet Member for Communities, Councillor Sanquest, to respond.
Thank you for your question, Darini, and for your interest in North Paddington programme. As you know, this administration is committed to making Westminster a fairer place, and the North Paddington programme is a place-based programme that's being delivered in partnership with local residents and the voluntary and community sector organisations in the area. It's committed to making the area a healthier, safer, more financially secure area. In phase 1, as you rightly said, there's been a huge amount of community listening. We've spent time developing and strengthening relationships with our communities across North Paddington. Across the 3 wards, we've had community workshops, regular meetings with neighbourhood fora, public consultations, and engagement stalls across the 3 wards. We also have a council office at 2 Fernhead Road and community development officers based in the area. Out of this community listening, residents have told us about their priorities and how they feel the council should be acting to address the persistent levels of inequality. Out of this work, we've established different streams of activity based around themes. The themes are neighbourhood, environment and place shaping, health and well-being, crime and safety, climate and greening, money, local jobs and training, community and connections, and housing and homelessness. And over phase 1, there's been delivery groups which address each of these themes, and those delivery groups are made up of residents, local organisations and frontline workers in the council. Each of those delivery groups has come up with a number of projects which are now moving into delivery. For example, the Crime and Safety Group has asked for improvements in the Mozart and Amberley estates, and those are being rolled out through phase 2. The Community Connections Group has asked for more support for the voluntary sectors. The Community Priority Programme addresses that, as well as our Community Capital Grant Pot, which has been open for applications. And over the next few months, we'll be reconvening the delivery groups and running more engagement sessions to keep communities cited on the projects and give them the opportunity to input into the projects as they move forward. And we hope that by keeping communities involved in the programme, we will ensure that interventions stay grounded in the experiences of local people.
Thank you for your answer, Councillor.
And thank you, Ms. Vedaratyanun. Thank you. Can I ask Suzanne Goodman to ask her question? And I understand you'd like to ask your question from your seat. Oh, no? Fine. Thank you.
Good evening. My question relates to the proposed cycleway on George Street. Safety is of paramount importance for all, especially vulnerable adults such as wheelchair and walking stick users and mums with prams. I live on Bryanston Square. My office is on Great Cumberland Place. My wheelchair-bound mother has a flat on George Street. I lead a hectic life, constantly rushing between these three locations, often dropping off my waste at Montague Square recycling bins. George Street features prominently in my life, crossing it many times a day. Please can you assure me that there will be adequate pedestrian provision for my mother's wheelchair and for me to safely cross the proposed cycleway on George Street? Over these long winters and short days, will George Street be properly illuminated, as there are no speed limits for bicycles? They can travel faster than cars and are very quiet. What enforcement powers will the council have if cyclists fail to follow the highway code on George Street?
Thank you. I'd now ask the Cabinet Member for City Management and Air Quality, Councillor de Bilderberg, to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Suzanne, for your question. It was good to meet you again and your mother earlier this evening. I want to reassure you that the safety of pedestrians in Westminster is our utmost priority, and we're committed to making sure that everyone in the city is able to get around our streets safely. I'd also like to reassure you that, as with all our cycle lanes, crossing points will be provided on the cycleway on George Street. This means that everyone will be able to cross the road safely, including those like your mother using a wheelchair or other mobility aids, and of course those pushing prams as well. Street lighting is also as important, and we will ensure that the light levels are appropriate for the conditions in George Street. We do want to make getting around Westminster by bike easier and safer, to encourage those who can cycle to use this environmentally friendly means of travel. We're also aware there's a small minority of cyclists who don't abide by the highway code, and the enforcement powers for speeding and for addressing concerns of cyclists not adhering to the highway code sit with the Metropolitan Police. And we strongly encourage them to use their powers to take firm action against dangerous cyclists, or even dangerous motorists as well. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Goodman. Question 4. Unfortunately, the resident who submitted this question, Mr. Alan Brooke, is unable to join the meeting this evening and has requested that I read out the question for him. So the question is as follows. We've noticed a marked deterioration in the standard of street cleaning over the past 2 years. The interval between cleaning seems to have increased, and there are significant build-ups of litter, leaves and debris on pavements, in the roadways and in the drainage alongside curbs. This did not happen 2 years ago. What are the cleaning service levels the contractors are required to provide? Who supervises them to ensure they are doing their job properly? And when can we expect a return to previous standards? I now ask the Cabinet Member for City Management and Air Quality, Councillor de Mildenberg, to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, via the Lord Mayor, for your question. I can assure you that there has been no change to our street cleansing service over the past 2 years. We have not reduced the number of street cleaners deployed, nor have we lowered the standards we ask our contractor, Veolia, to meet. In fact, we've been trialling new, innovative ways to keep our streets clean. In the north of the borough, we are piloting the use of electric bikes to help street sweepers get from their depots to their cleansing routes much more quickly and to help them cover more ground. It's early, but we're seeing really promising results, and we hope to be able to roll out this more widely later in this year. We also regularly commission Keep Britain Tidy to provide an independent, objective assessment of the quality of our streets. They have told us that only 2.3% of our streets in the last year were below standard. This is down from 3% last year. So we're improving, not getting worse. I know, Lord Mayor, that Alan was speaking as a Maida Vale resident, where we had a particular challenge managing leaf fall at the end of last year. Due to strong winds and rain in late November, we'll all remember that, our street cleansing team told me that they had to manage a very sudden, heavy downfall of leaves in a very short period of time, compared to previous years, where leaves fell and were cleared consistently over a 6 to 8 week period. So we're challenged, but we accept the challenge, and this is why, Alan, via the Lord Mayor, you may have noticed the more leaf fall recently. But I can assure you that we're as committed as ever to keep our streets clean. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, question 5. Can I ask Angela Yulvesi to join us at the front of the chamber to ask her question? Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity that I can ask a question about service charge today. As a Westminster Council leaseholder, it's very important for me that the properties are managed adequately at a cost-effective price. So, I mean, it seems to me that service charges are out of control at the moment. For a 2-bed flat, the monthly service charge is £900 per month. Plus, I got a bill for 28k to change the fire doors. This is just my part for the building. Plus, there will be a heating bill coming, upgrading the heating system, which is estimated to be 60k. How do you expect people to pay for that? That's my question, really.
Thank you. Can I ask the Cabinet Member for Housing Services, Councillor Begum, to respond?
Thank you very much for your question, Angela. The past 24 months have seen an increase in service charge costs. This is not unique to Westminster, and the housing sector is reporting significant increases. We reinvest all service charges into accommodation with our residents' safety in mind. The increase in service charges is as a result of increased costs in heating and hot water, communal electricity, and building insurance provision. There are also additional statutory health and safety requirements as a result of the Building Safety Act and changes to fire safety legislation, which has resulted in increased obligations for the Council to ensure compliance with legislation and to ensure the health and safety of all residents. These are costs which are increasing for all providers and are out of the Council's control. These changes represent circa 89% of all of our overall increase in costs. Controls are in place to ensure that the Council is achieving value for money for its services and works. For instance, we engage quantity surveyors who evaluate the prices of major works to ensure they reflect the market. Our bulk purchasing of energy has also seen slower increases in energy costs when compared to the private sector. We recognise that residents are concerned about rising service charges. We held a public meeting last year with various affected estates, including Lillington and Longmoor Estate, and Churchill Gardens, to hear their concerns. In response to this, as part of our resident engagement activities this year, we will be running a task and finish group. This will be an opportunity for a group of leaseholders to work with Westminster staff to make some recommendations about our billing processes, our leaseholder communications, and the key lessee group. As part of our task and finish group, leaseholders will work collaboratively with housing staff to understand challenges and develop solutions. Communications will be going out shortly to invite interested leaseholders to put themselves forward for this group, and I would invite them to do so, and I really hope you will join the task and finish group. Support is available for residents who are struggling to pay service charges and for major works charges over £2,000 for resident leaseholders, and resident leaseholders can spread the cost of repayment over 5 years. You can speak to our leasehold team either online, in person or over the phone, or at our housing service centres. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Yulvesci.
The details of the answer, so please could it be sent to her?
As I say,
okay.
as I said at the beginning, Councillor Hymes, all questions asked and responses provided will be made available on the Council's website in the days after the meeting. Thank you. That was the last question on this item. Thank you for all taking time to participate tonight. If you would like to stay, those who asked a question or questions, for the remainder of the meeting, you're very much welcome to stay. I suspect you won't, but if you would like to leave now, I wish you a good evening and thank you again for attending. Okay, agenda item 8, questions. There are 45 minutes for questions. Will all members wishing to ask a question please indicate now and continue doing so until your request has been noted by the Deputy Chief Executive and the Director of Law. Please remember that questions may be asked of a Cabinet member or a committee chair. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I will ask members who indicated they wish to ask a question after Councillor Swaddle has asked his 3 questions. Questions and responses, please, should be brief. Councillor Swaddle, you may now ask the first of your 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A question for the Leader. At the last full council, the Leader declared, and I quote, "This council is working to get full facilities at St Mary's Hospital as soon as possible."
That worked well.
And this would be done through the lobbying of government, even though his Cabinet member for Public Health previously said that wouldn't be needed. What assessment has the Leader made of his and the Council's effectiveness in campaigning for the government to refurbish this vital facility, considering the government announced on Monday that works will not begin possibly until 2038?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the question. Obviously, the announcement earlier this week was deeply disappointing, but we have been clear that we're working very closely with Imperial on the next steps. We have been working on this point. I will not take lectures from the party opposite that made an entirely fantastical, nonsense new hospital programme which had no money to deliver it. We all know that Boris Johnson made that up, and we are, as with so many things in the public domain at the moment, trying to resolve the problems that we have inherited. However, yes, I know, I've known for 20 years. But the fundamental point is, the fundamental point is, we are, as a government, dealing with an incredibly difficult situation. However, we are clear that St Mary's is a unique case where the ability to bring together private sector money and the growth potential of the life sciences at Paddington create opportunities that are not available elsewhere in the new hospitals programme to reduce costs and create other opportunities as the government deals with the horrific fiscal inheritance it received from the previous administration. We have made firm representations in the wake of the announcement this week, and we're going to be working very closely in a task force with Imperial to address the issues going forward. And I'm I'm hopeful that the government will listen to the case for moving forward with the business case that had been stalled for so long, so we can actually see whether there's an opportunity to bring the scheme forward. So that is the case we're making very clearly to government, is we recognise the fiscal situation that you inherited, but let's move forward with St Mary's to make sure we get a business case up together to see whether we can bring the scheme forward. And I will make that case at all levels of government, working with our MPs and working in partnership, in lockstep with Imperial, who have been extremely grateful for the support they have received from the council so far.
Lord Mayor, I note that the timing of the government's announcement on Monday coincided with events in America. One might think this was done simply to bury bad news. Professor Orchard, Chief Executive of Imperial College Healthcare Trust, stated that this is devastating news for our communities, our staff and patients, and for the whole capital's healthcare system. We understand that the government's new hospital programme must be affordable, but the simple truth is that St Mary's will not last until 2040. Will the leader therefore commit to contacting the Health Secretary this week to urge the government to U-turn and prioritise the St Mary's for the benefit of people and patients? Or does he fear his overtures, if he even made any, will be ignored again?
Hear, hear.
To be clear, both myself and our local MPs have made cases to both the relevant ministers and special advisors in the wake of the announcement. We will continue to do so to make the case to move forward with St Mary's. The fact is, as we all know, the plans were delayed for many years because of the gap between rhetoric and reality in the previous New Hospitals programme. But we are clear that there is a pathway forward to move through the business case to develop a planning outline that will help us get a sense of the overall costs. Because ultimately, with the fiscal burden the government has inherited, they are trying to make scarce resources go as far as possible, and therefore it's incumbent on us to work with Imperial to see what the true costs of the scheme overall after the growth potential and other local benefits are, so that we can make a clear case to government going forwards.
Thank you,
and
Councillor
we'll be very clear in making that case at all levels.
Thank you, Councillor Hugg. Second question,
Lord Mayor, continuing the theme of the leader's ineffectiveness, have another question for the leader. The post office is proposing to close multiple post offices across the city, and many thousands have already signed our petition against these closures. What has Westminster Council done to fight these closures driven by Labour government cuts?
The privatised the situation of the whole postal system has been a complete mess, and again, this government is working with the Post Office and Royal Mail to improve the overall situation they've inherited. However, we are clear that it is essential that Post Office capacity is retained in Westminster at similar levels to the situation today. We are, as we have done on Queensway, and a number of other locations across the city, we have worked to find new opportunities with our council office helping identify new partners to deliver post office services. We stand ready to do the same across the city with the 9 potential sites that are at risk. We've made the case directly to the post office, and about retention of the existing zones, and we're looking at the areas where the council is the landowner to see what extra opportunities that provides for us to retain services. We are clear we will use whatever levers are available to the city council to ensure a strong network of post offices remain within Westminster to serve our communities and provide access to banking services as well as post services. So we absolutely agree the importance of retaining that network. We've already got a strong track record in several locations of a City Council working to retain and reopen post offices, and we will continue to do so throughout the years.
Thank you, Councillor.
Over the last 2 years, that's us.
Thank you, Councillor Hugg. Supplementary?
Thank you. I've met with the Post Office management recently to discuss these closures and also to talk about potential alternative locations and provision. Other than photo ops, what has he done personally to protect the Post Office?
I've been in numerous meetings and discussions with our officers about a plan to actually deliver change rather than the kind of photo ops that Councillor Swaddle specialises in. We are clear that we have, as a resources of a council, made a difference in a number of locations over previous years to find new post office locations. That is the baseline. Well, Queensway for a start.
Literally succeeded.
Absolutely
No, she definitely didn't.
She's not been a councillor for several years. That's complete gibberish. So, to be absolutely clear, we've done that and we will continue to do that.
Oh my God.
That was bizarre. But we're very clear that we need to go beyond that, given this. So we're looking at all opportunities we have to make sure the post office service is there. I said I've written to the relevant members of the post office. Our teams have been working closely with them to try and look at opportunities in Westminster, and we're working closely with our MPs to lobby the post office centrally. But we are clear. The resources of the council will work to assist our residents in making sure there is a strong post office network for years to come in Westminster.
Councillor Swaddle.
Lord Mayor, my final question is to the leader. I listened with interest to the Mayor of London say that Oxford Street will be delivered by private funding. What has the Mayor told Westminster Council and the leader of this plan?
When did they last speak?
Thank you very much. Obviously, we look forward to hearing the greater detail about what the Mayor proposes. I think we are obviously we are having significant discussions around the 10 points that we sent out in our response to the Mayor's decision. We will obviously report back to full council when we have concrete information to be able to share with them, because we understand that everyone in Westminster needs clarity on this to protect the interests of our residents. We are very clear that we have deep concerns about what was initially proposed by the Mayor. Obviously, some of these discussions are happening in the abstract. We are clear that there needs a strong future for Oxford Street. All parts of it, not just one end, but we recognise we are clear that our approach was the one that we preferred. However, we are working within the art of the possible to make sure that our interests of our residents are represented, and we will continue to make those representations to the Mayor and his team.
Supplementary, Councillor.
Thank you. I'll surmise that as he hasn't told me anything. Senior business leaders confirmed to me at the time that they had not been approached over new funding. How can this be? And why has Westminster not yet got any commitment to recover any of the £20 million wasted on the failed Oxford Street scheme?
Thank you very much. Obviously, Councillor Swaddle, being the person who signed off the cheques when there were no external factors involved for the previous cock-ups on Oxford Street, under his penmanship, the council signed off £35 million to deliver a £6 million Marble Arch Mound and a photography quarter, spending over £20 million on documents that didn't even get to stage one designs. We had a very well worked up scheme that had support of residents and local businesses. We have obviously,
but not Sadiq.
We obviously, well, sorry, are you saying you preferred Sadiq's approach, or?
Yeah. No. I'm saying
we are very proud of that.
Okay. Can we hear Councillor Hugg, please?
Obviously, we have made significant investment in the physical infrastructure in and around Oxford Street, which equates to the vast majority of the spend to date by this administration. We are very clear that we are making the case that we need to get something for our investment, and we want to get because obviously there is current plans that at the moment would not be coming to fruition. We are making all sorts of cases around that, and we will obviously report back to full council at appropriate time as those conversations develop.
Thank you. Councillor Lilly, the floor is yours.
Have you spoken to Sadiq?
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's 8 years since the Cabinet Member for Public Protection of the party opposite cancelled and decommissioned 75 CCTV cameras, leaving our residents vulnerable to antisocial behaviour and crime. I'd like to ask the current Cabinet Member for Public Protection and Licensing how many CCTV cameras we now have.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Lilly, for your question. To date, we have 71 cameras, and we are on track to have 100 cameras by March this year.
Supplementary, please, Lord Mayor. I'd like to ask the current Cabinet Member for Public Protection how many CCTV cameras we now have in Soho and how they are affecting crime and the protection of our residents. Thank you.
They're not useful for crime.
Thank you. Currently, we have CCTV cameras up and running at the following locations. One in Berwick Street, one in Broadwick Street, Holland Street, Ingress Street, Court and Peter Street. And Dean Street and Brewer Street are due for installation any day now, following the removal of the Soho Kids Christmas lights, and which is why there was a delay in the first place. So I'm really pleased that we've already seen, you know, really positive impacts as a result of these cameras being up. So we've, you know, identified commercial burglary on Broadwick Street, a robbery with a knife on Old Crompton Street, and assault on security on Broadwick and Berwick Street. So already, actually throughout Westminster, we've already seen some really positive impacts as a result of the CCTV 24/7 live monitoring system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Barbara Asmaninoff. Barbara. Councillor Asmaninoff.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is for the Cabinet Member for Highways. Councillor de Moldenberg, you will recall we met earlier this month on George Street to inspect the proposed changes for the segregated C43 cycleway. I emailed follow-up questions to you. Please can you confirm that these questions will be answered in writing, in particular on George Street, who has the priority on the 11 crossroads to the north and 7 to the south on the 450-metre stretch between Edgware Road and Gloucester Place?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was asked if I would confirm that the answers to Councillor Arsenault's questions will be sent to her in writing, and I can confirm that is the case.
Supplementary.
Follow-up. Please can you confirm why you are willing to proceed with George Street cycleway without knowing what the Mayor of London has planned for Oxford Street? A completed cycleway on George Street may compromise the best option.
Hear, hear.
Lord Mayor, the world doesn't stop until we wait for those Oxford Street plans to emerge. And I'm sure that the Mayor will take note of the plans we have for a cycleway along George Street, because it's the Mayor's cycleway that we will be implementing. So I'm sure that he will applaud our speedy work on this and take it into full account when considering what plans he brings forward for Oxford Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is to Cabinet Member of City Management and Highways and Air Quality. What is the latest situation on the proposal of Regent Street, Piccadilly Circus and Haymarket?
Oh, we didn't hear that. Can you repeat the question?
Can you repeat the question?
Can't even hear the question.
My question was...
Speak into the microphone, please.
If I can say that,
maybe
I'd
Councillor...
like to know the latest situation...
He wrote the question anyway.
Regent Street. Did you hear that, Councillor Devonish?
Thank you.
Or should I repeat it again?
No.
Thank you.
Twice.
I'm pleased to say that we announced last week that with the Crown Estate, we've appointed Allies and Morrison as designers for the public realm improvements on Regent Street, and we're starting further consultation this month. We had the first meeting with residents and amenity societies last Tuesday, which went well, And we're very pleased that this will mark another step towards realising the vision for Regent Street, the Haymarket and Piccadilly Circus, which was published last year by the Council and the Crown Estate. A vision that was informed by over 3,500 residents, workers and visitors to the area during an extensive public consultation exercise in 2023. We're keen to get moving on this and to deliver a world-class street along Regent Street, Piccadilly, Haymarket and going further up Portland Street so we can complete John Nash's vision of a park-to-park thoroughfare which would be the envy of the
Let's
world.
hope the Mayor doesn't take it off you.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My supplementary, is it proposed to pedestrianise Regent Street?
I'm pleased to say that there are no plans, and I'll repeat that, there are no plans to pedestrianise Regent Street.
Hear, hear. So we heard it from the Cabinet member.
There you go.
No plans. Councillor Kaplan.
Sorry, just turn the microphone around. My question is to the Deputy Leader, Councillor Less, on the subject of tents. Councillor Less, I wrote to you on the 20th of September, the 8th of October, the 22nd of October, the 1st of November, the 13th of November, the 19th of November and the 18th of December.
That was just 2020.
The last one you haven't even replied to yet. So a simple question for you. Has the Council applied for a possession order for the tents at St Mary's Terrace that are on Council land and have been for the last 9 months?
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Councillor Kaplan, for your question, and I have replied to you and replied and replied. I have replied to you on those issues, and I have told, well, the email, actually we'll have to find the email, but I will dig it out. Once I sit down, and I will forward them on to you. We have applied for a possession order for St Mary's Terrace. As you know, that particular part of Westminster is owned by Westminster and TfL.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
On the other side of St Mary's Terrace, it is actually by the Little Westway. Sorry, I don't want to talk at you because. So we have applied, and we are clearing it as and when we have. As and when our city inspectors and our neighbourhood coordinators are out and about, they have constantly tidied up the area and cleared away any rubbish that is left behind. But I'm happy to dig for the emails and I will forward them on to you.
Thank you. I'm referring to the 18th of December, the other ones you did reply to. Supplementary question. What contact, that's what I asked, what contact have you had with TfL to remove the multiple tents under the Westway that have been there for more than 9 months? And what have they told you about their plans to remove them?
I can assure you, Councillor Kaplan, that the officers are constantly in contact with TfL around getting possession orders, likewise how we have done it in Park Lane. As you know, the Park Lane encampment was removed back in October. Then there was a subsequent reporting of seeing further tents, and a second clearance happened on the 4th of December. So, as we have done in Park Lane, we will continue to do so on the TfL land by the Westway.
Thank you, Councillor Hassan. Thank you.
My question is to the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Renters.
She can't stand up.
What actions are we taking to tackle rogue landlords in our city?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hassan, for the question. The main initiative at the moment is, well, we've just finished a consultation on introducing a selective licensing scheme in 15 of the 18 wards in Westminster. So we know there are predicted 6,764 properties have significant hazards present in them. So by being able to implement a selective licensing scheme which would cover all rented properties in all those wards, apart from ones which are already covered by the mandatory licensing scheme or the additional licensing scheme. It would place the burden on landlords to ensure that they are managing their properties properly, reducing those hazards, and also reducing the amount of antisocial behaviour that goes on in those particular areas as well.
In terms of the selective licensing schemes, when can we see those up and running?
So, yeah, as I said, we just finished the 12-week consultation. That finished a few days ago. Just before Christmas, we learned from the government that we would not have to go through the usual, the usual process up to then of requiring Secretary of State approval for selected licensing schemes will no longer be the case. So that should shave, we expect, about 3 months off the time period that we'd estimated for before. So that means that rather than it being sometime towards the end of Q1 next year, we probably, and if it all goes ahead, we should be able to get things up and running by the end of this year.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Hello, this is a question for the leader. How are you going to deliver the new government's housing target for Westminster, which is now nearly 4,000 new homes, double the current number?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. We are obviously looking to maximise opportunities for house building throughout the city. We have active programmes on our own land. We're working with the private sector to find new opportunities, and we are obviously looking at a further city plan revision starting later this year to further look at ways in which we can boost house building in Westminster. However, I want to reassure her and other members, other residents who may have been slightly confused by the government's national housing targets. To be clear, in London, all the borough housing targets get aggregated up to the GLA level and redistributed within London. Given the unique situation that Westminster's in, with the CAS forming around half of our geographical space, it is very unlikely that we will be dealing with those sort of numbers of house building in any revised target that comes back from the Mayor of London as that is redistributed across London. That's the information the ministers have been very clear, and the Mayor of London has been clear. However, we are committed to delivering more homes, particularly more affordable homes, to make sure that people have an opportunity to live in Westminster. So we are going to work very hard to deliver that, or recognising the really difficult state that the resi market is in across London, but which is why Councillor Noble is doing the Lord's work, making sure that our schemes are being driven forward on our own land. But to be clear, the housing targets that were announced for the boroughs in London are not actual targets that will be operational within London.
I'm most grateful that you mentioned affordable homes, because that brings me on to my supplemental. How many affordable homes have you delivered which are being lived in as I speak, that were not planned and brought forward by the previous Conservative administration?
We are very clear that there are at least already 330 new affordable council homes for social rent that were not previously set forward by the previous administration. Well over, I think it's, we'll get the precise figures to her, but I think it's around 150 that were previously private that have been converted into affordable housing. So substantially more within the pipeline.
Just
Obviously,
to confirm, no new schemes, is that right?
We're bringing forward 291 Harrow Road, which was not a scheme. No, it was not a scheme.
Yes, it was.
Councillor Cunningham, I can reassure you that it was not a scheme. It was a plot of land that you bought and didn't have a plan. It's now a scheme that will be delivering more homes in Westminster. But to be clear,
Councillor Cunningham, please.
We have been very clear to convert. As I said, there are 330 homes that are now going to be council homes for rent that would either be private homes, or other unaffordable forms of rent in Westminster. We've made sure that they're affordable to Westminster families to help tackle the waiting list and to tackle the TA crisis that we have been bequeathed by her party of government previously.
Thank you. Can I remind members to speak into the microphone? I think Councillor Cunningham, you did that. Excellent. Can I ask members to speak into the microphone? Thank you. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a question for the Cabinet Member for Climate, Ecology and Culture. Can you please provide an update on the Sustainable City Charter, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McAllister. There we go. That's nice and loud. Sustainable City Charter, just a reminder for everyone, this was a scheme that we launched in partnership with the Westminster Property Association in 2023 to help businesses all across the city to work towards our 2040 net zero city target. The vast majority of our emissions we're, of course, not directly responsible for. I'm delighted that at the weekend we had our 90th signatory, King's College London. Thank you for bringing us up to a nice round number, with 37 having joined in the last calendar year. The biggest update, though, is that we had the first reporting period. So as they sign up, there are voluntary reports that they can fill in about how they've changed their behaviours due to joining the Charter, which I remind you is voluntary. We don't enforce anything alongside it. And the first group of signatories reported a 19% decrease in their average energy usage over that first year from being Charter members. So we're really pleased with how it's going, and we're looking forward to continue to work with the signatories to further reduce their emissions going forward.
Supplementary, Lord Mayor. As the Charter contributes to climate change, I'd like to ask the Cabinet Member what work is being done to ensure that residents are ready and adapting to the effects of climate change, and what we are doing to support them. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor McAllister. So you bring up an important point here, which is around adaptation. Much of the discussion in councils across the country is focused on mitigation, which is reducing our emissions and therefore ensuring that there isn't as much warming happening. But we're obviously seeing the effects already. We're seeing flooding. In July 2021, we had very large floods, in particular in Maida Vale and in Lancaster Gate, and we've had lots of residents who are still being impacted by the fallout of those floods. We had temperatures of over 40 degrees in the summer of 2022. We were the hottest part of the country in St James's Ward. So there's lots of work going on. We've just finished doing our climate risk and vulnerability assessment, and that'll be being published imminently. It'll be mapping out the areas that are the most vulnerable in the city and clear actions that residents and we and businesses can take to look to address this. And so in the updated Climate Emergency Action Plan, we're going to be adding in actions specifically on adaptation for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm conscious that these microphones really aren't working. I'm now being told, don't pick the microphone up. I mean, you know, we need to get this sorted. But anyway, thank you for that. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care. A 70-year-old disabled lady in Little Venice only has a state pension. But despite applying twice for pension credit, she has been turned down and cannot get the winter fuel allowance.
Shameful.
She told me she is freezing. What is the council doing to help pensioners in this dire position, besides telling them to go to other agencies like Age UK or Citizens Advice?
Thanks very much for your question, Councillor Dean. There are two things that the Council is doing specifically for this purpose. So for people who are not eligible for pension credit, but who do receive council tax benefit or other benefits, there was an automatic payment equivalent to the winter fuel allowance in the form of vouchers that went out in November. If your resident is eligible and hasn't received it, please pass on the details and I will check. If somebody, however, does not receive any benefits but is still facing hardship, the council has made an allowance of, I think, 100k to Age UK so that people can apply to receive the same amount of money as they would have received from the winter fuel allowance to cover that because they're suffering from hardship.
Thank you, but many of these pensioners don't like to go to agencies. They feel embarrassed. So the lady asked me if I could help her to access a food bank. North Paddington Food Bank asked for a referral from Citizens Advice or Age UK, and this elderly lady feels embarrassed to do this. To make things quicker, would it be possible for local councillors to refer desperate pensioners to a food bank, as we know our residents better than most?
I can look into that, but I can also let you know that apart from North Paddington Food Bank, which does require a referral, there are also other sources of support that don't require a referral.
Yeah, but not near Little Venice.
And well, let's look into this for your resident and make sure that we find a solution for her.
Thank you. Councillor Albert.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is for the Cabinet Member for Communities. What progress has the Council made on delivering its promise to create a more user-friendly access point for residents and businesses to report street-based issues such as fly tipping, potholes, abandoned vehicles, graffiti?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for your question, Councillor Albert, and welcome back from your maternity leave. The Council's reported tool was clumsy and difficult to use. A lot of residents told us. Karaoke situation here. Are we picking it up? Are we not? Okay. And I'm pleased to say that as part of our Fair Westminster commitments, we have made great progress on reviewing Report It. In 2023, officers spent 4 months engaging with 500 users of Report It to understand what they want from the tool and how to improve it. I'm pleased to say the team have done incredible work on making improvements to Report It. We've deployed new technologies, including AI, to improve the accessibility of the tool, and officers have been making improvements to the reporting processes on the back end as well, so that they're resolved quicker. There are revamped journeys for Report It that are live now, including those for noise, waste, street cleansing, abandoned vehicles, road and pavement damage, e-bikes and scooters.
Supplementary, Lord Mayor. What have you learnt so far since the revamped version has been in place?
So I've learned that we are making really good progress and that residents are giving us good feedback. I think that's because that the experience is getting easier for them to report things. So we've had a 37.5 decrease in the average time taken for users to find the category for their issues. So they can report things more easily now. The average time taken to complete a report has reduced from 3.65 minutes to 1.37 minutes, so just over half. Image AI is being used to categorise reports, and the minimum number of steps needed to raise an issue is decreased from 10 to 8, so it's much easier for users to report things. This shows us that it's getting easier and quicker to raise issues with the council, and in turn it means that officers at the council can understand what's going on the streets more quickly and address them. We're also monitoring user satisfaction and continuing to work with a group of stakeholders who are very interested in reporting it and helping us to continue to roll out these improvements.
Thank you. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. To the Leader of the Council, when I was Leader of the Opposition, I asked the Council whether he would implement all the items in his manifesto, and he very helpfully confirmed that he would. Could he therefore update us on his commitment to set up a financial review board of independent external experts to identify opportunities for cost savings?
As Councillor Robertson is aware, we have had extensive external expertise looking at the way in which the council operates. I believe she talked about it quite a lot. Obviously, we created the Future Westminster Commission to look at all of the ways in which Westminster was operating, to look at new ways of doing things. We have further looked internally at how we do our own budget processes to robustly test the situation that we found, that we inherited. Obviously, Councillor Boothroyd will obviously update us on that work at the budget. But obviously, we're looking at all ways to deliver our manifesto. Obviously, we had a programme for 4 years, and we will look at delivering that over the 4-year cycle.
Thank you for the answer, but just to paraphrase Lord Mayor, that means that they still haven't set up this board which they committed to doing. So even though they told the people of Westminster in their manifesto that this would identify cost savings. So as they haven't done this yet, after almost 3 years in administration, will he therefore guarantee the residents of our city that there will be no need for any cuts in services in the budget, nor rise in council tax, as otherwise they would have delivered on their promise to set up this board?
Obviously, as Councillor Robertson knows, I'm not going to preempt the budget in this discussion, but obviously, as she also knows, our budget proposals have been gone through a very robust early scrutiny process. And obviously we are looking, and we are facing enormous challenges from rising temporary accommodation, which have ballooned in recent years as a result of the housing crisis that the previous government to the local authority. We have identified in those reports that have gone through the scrutiny crisis a number of ways to provide efficiency savings, to deliver services and create opportunities for new investments. We'll be talking about those further over the months ahead. We are looking to make sure that we are protecting the services we provide to our residents whilst providing opportunities to provide further investment in services that we know that our residents need. I will not apologise for that work that we've been doing, and we will continue doing it, continue to invest in those services that we need whilst maintaining efficiencies. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan.
A question for the...
I've got Councillor Sullivan.
Not only clear. Sullivan or Sutherland?
Sullivan, sorry. Sullivan.
Is this working? My question is for the Cabinet Member for Planning and Economic Development. We've had Christmas quite recently. Happy New Year, everyone. What have you been doing to help trading in the West End, first of all?
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan, and happy Christmas, happy New Year to everybody. Well, it's always nice to wish everyone a happy New Year, isn't it? So I've got good news from the West End. Trading was fine over Christmas, and particularly the Meanwhile On programme that this council introduced had a very successful Christmas period. So 4 new brands have had the chance to trade in the West End, giving them a boost, activating vacant units and giving a boost to the surrounding businesses too. So please go and visit the 4 shops. You've got Canvas on the corner of South Malt Street and Oxford Street, selling designer sneakers customised by artists. You've got Love Cocoa on South Molton Street with the best hot chocolate I've ever tasted. By Rotation on Brook Street, which will do you designer dress rental by the day. And ESO, it'll do you a suit as well, Tony, right?
You need one.
And ESO, a jewellery brand on New Bond Street. Look, we got consistent feedback from these brands. Though they all began trading online, having a physical store brings more and different customers from different demographics they hadn't thought of targeting. For example, Kindred on Brook Street before By Rotation discovered its Irish linen dresses were popular with Middle Eastern customers and have now opened a store in Dubai. Another brand found having a physical store in a classy location not only helped double online sales, but also attracted wholesale interest from Liberty and Harrods. We're delighted to play our part in keeping the retail thriving in the West End. I'm almost finished. As one of the brands wrote, quote, I just wanted to say this opportunity has been transformational for our business. I could not thank everyone enough in making this happen.
Well done.
Supplementary, Councillor Sullivan. Thank you.
That was such jolly news. I'd just love to hear about what else is going on in the city outside the West End, please.
That's a good question, because there's lots of stuff happening outside of the West End. If you go to Harrow Road, contractors are already at work with shopfront improvements on Lux Blinds and at Hales Jewellers, the longest standing shop in the entirety of Harrow Road. 11 more premises will follow, giving a much needed facelift to Harrow Road, giving confidence to private sector investment to follow. We're also offering the traders trading in visual merchandising, so their stock looks as inviting as their shopfront, and business resilience, so they can survive the regular uncertainties of economic life. And we've supported the creation of the Harrow Road Business Association to give them a voice. And away from Harrow Road, we've allocated almost £3 million to the Paddington and Bayswater High Streets plan for shopfront improvement grants, a place plan for Praed Street and Queensway Westbourne Grove, designing public realm improvements on Praed Street, which needs it badly.
Thank you.
And public realm at Five Ways Junction, Westbourne Grove, new public art and more training in visual merchandise and business resilience.
I think you've given us a full answer, Councillor Barraclough. Thank you.
Well, we're doing all we can to support our businesses.
Thank you, thank you. Councillor Barnes.
Hear, hear. Lord Mayor, if I may, just before I ask my question, I would be grateful if members on both sides of this chamber would join me in congratulating our outstanding children's services for their recent outstanding result from Ofsted, the 3rd in 10 years.
Now your question.
And now my question, which is on the same subject, although it's actually a question for the Cabinet Member for Finance. The social care grant is a mainstay of the funding of both adult and children's social care provision. I'd be grateful if the member can share details of the Westminster settlement published on the 18th of December, and if it's his view that the provisional settlement is satisfactory or not.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The details of the social care grant will probably be better addressed to the Cabinet member responsible for that. I know that we were certainly not expecting the grant to be of the level that it was, and it fits into the overall settlement, which was an extremely positive one for the City of Westminster. It did enable us to meet a number of the extreme cost pressures that have been seen in the field of social care in recent years, and that we were able to meet because the social care grant was increased.
Thank you. Supplementary. Given the Cabinet member's eye for detail, I'm sure he's aware that the grant requires money to be spent on both adult and children's social care. The draft budget that we reviewed before Christmas only contained money for adult social services care from that particular grant. The question I have is, are you planning to challenge the government's guidelines, or are you going to allocate some of that money for children's? And if so, how much is the children's budget going to go up by in the final version of the budget?
I think the Cabinet, Councillor Barnes should have read the papers for the Budget Scrutiny Task Group when he would have learned the answer to that question. As far as I remember, we are in fact increasing
Please feel free
the
to share them
funding.
with us.
This is no. You don't get a second go at the cherry. We have been increasing the funding for children's social care.
Yes, that wasn't actually the
Thank
question.
you.
But
No,
thank
that's fine. Thank you. I'm conscious of time. We might have a quick question from Councillor Hook.
This is a question for the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care. You're planning to make investments in adult social care. Can you tell us a bit more about those, please?
Yes, I'd be glad to. I'm very proud of the investments that we have put forward that will be voted on when we have the budget meeting here. One of those investments is about increasing the rate of which we pay for direct payments, which will mean that that more people will be able to access direct payments, and the people working for direct payments will get paid more. The other change that we are making is that we are putting, at the moment, currently, lots of people might not know this, but the rate at which you start paying for adult social care is different if you're under 65 and if you're over 65. And we are changing this to equalize it by leveling up so that people under 65 can keep more of their money at the same rate as people over the age of 65.
Supplementary question on that. Will this make a real difference to people's lives?
Yes, to people under 65 who are accessing adult social care, this will mean being able to keep up to £60 more of their own money. To people who work caring for someone who gets paid with direct payments, they will see about £1.50 an hour increase, sometimes a bit more. It will also mean that more people can access direct payments, so it will give more people the freedom to be able to select themselves who cares for them, rather than having to rely on someone from a care agency. Thanks.
Thank you. So sadly that means time out for the questions, but thank you for those questions, and apologies for all those councillors who wanted to ask a question that couldn't. Okay, agenda item number 9, councillor issues. I call upon Councillor Regan Hook to speak on her topic, her chosen topic of the opportunities and challenges in the Harrow Road ward. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It was an honour to be elected in the September 24 by-election for Harrow Road, the ward in which I've lived for over 28 years, and I'm grateful to those who put their faith in me to represent them. I follow in the footsteps of Tim Rocker, now MP for Macclesfield. He was well known in our area and will be remembered by many for the care he put into resolving residents' issues and, of course, securing free school meals for 3 to 14-year-olds. I know Councillor Bush and Councillor Albert are also held in high regard locally, and I'm looking forward to many years working with them in Harrow Road. It's been a busy few months since September, getting to grips with the inner workings of council, being out and about, meeting the good people from the many and rich and diverse cultures of Harrow Road. residents and businesses alike. I've yet to get better acquainted with residents towards the north of the ward near Saltram Crescent area and to the south of Marylands Road, but connecting with people in these past few months has been a joy. Lord Mayor, the people of the ward don't think of themselves as having that belonging until it's time to vote, of course. They have friends down the road in Queen's Park or may go to the library there. Their kids go to school at Paddington Academy in Harrow Road, and they venture to Westbourne Park to see a doctor. And they not only share the same local resources, they also share one other big factor: the gap in male life expectancy of 18 years between the poorest wards in the north of Westminster and the most prosperous ward. This is by some way the largest such gap, and to that extent Westminster is the most unequal borough in the country. That's quite some fact, I think. But as anyone with a background or interest in public health will tell you, health is not about health alone. We have to consider the social determinants of health: education, housing, food poverty, access to training, employment, etc. Then the reason for the lifespan gap becomes clear. Our little pocket of North Westminster was forgotten, ignored, deprived of investment for way too long. Maybe an area of people living predominantly in social housing just weren't priority. An occasional sporadic input from council was deemed enough. Lord Mayor, a few years ago I chatted with a lovely chap down at Maida Hill Market. Let's call him Mason. Mason was on long-term benefits, living in a single room in a shared house with very little opportunity to socialise, even those he shared the house with. You have the additional health risks of prostate cancer that we all know black men in particular face. His flat had mould and he had very little money for food. He was unsupported and yet strangely optimistic. At the time, I have to say, I wondered why. One of the delights of becoming a councillor in September was to learn even more about the North Paddington programme. Talk about getting stuff done. A comprehensive 4-year programme tackling the social determinants of health with a total capital budget of 20 million. Or those who perhaps use a different currency, that's about £3.5, one per ward, with much longer lasting positive effects. The programme will help deliver jobs, well-paid jobs to the area. Fairer Westminster research revealed that 60% of families in poverty have someone in work. We know too that 30% of working-age residents are not in employment at all. And the main reason for not working? Long-term sickness. You see how they're related? Low wages and worklessness explain much of the 10-year life expectancy gap between Bayswater and Harrow Road, which is why good training, sound employment and resources to set up new businesses are key to improving the health of the people of Harrow Road. After years of underinvestment, we're finally tackling core issues on health and well-being. Of course, too, a healthy life is a fulfilling one, and the programme looks at helping people to meet up, learn, socialise, or be able to spend time with friends and family in a safe and welcoming environment such as the new community hub in Ernest Harris House. The creative arts are good for key mental health as well, and support for Paddington Arts, the new creative enterprise zone, the enterprise space at 300 Harrow Road are more than welcomed by our community. I'm very much looking forward to ensuring the Council makes best use of the investments, to all of these plans being fully realised and seeing the real and long-awaited change that result in better outcomes in people's lives. I'll also be advocating for prostate cancer screening to be part of any wider initiative. I hope to meet up with Mason again, seeing how his life has been enhanced, no longer ignored but supported, to see him as part of something bigger, a community that's thriving at last, and knowing maybe, just maybe, that his lifespan has been improved. I would expect nothing less of the Council, and during my time as councillor, I look forward to hearing more about the support and commitment that we can give to our ward and to the North Paddington area, and how the Council can continue to do the right thing. You might find Harrow Road residents' lives are depending on it.
Thank you, Councillor Hook. And if I could add my thanks on your maiden speech.
Thank you.
Councillor Sanquest to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hook, and congratulations on your maiden speech. The people of Harrow Road are very lucky to have you serving them and we've all been so impressed with your energy over the last few months as you get to grips with the job. As you so rightly set out, the inequality in the North Paddington area and in Harrow Road is really staggering, and I'm pleased to say that the city plan outlines how everybody in this chamber agrees with that sentiment. The city plan, adopted by the minority party, said the Northwest Economic Development Area, which Harrow Road is part of, has long contained some of Westminster's most deprived areas, with lower levels of qualifications, earnings and health, and higher levels of worklessness than elsewhere in the city. It is an area requiring coordinated intervention to tackle persistent levels of inequality, and the North Paddington programme is that programme. At the heart of our Fair Westminster strategy is a commitment to tackle the health inequalities that you outlined in your speech. The 18-year life expectancy gap between residents in North Paddington and elsewhere in the city is really shocking. And you're right that the area has been forgotten and not gotten the required investment for too long. We know that there's a systemic relationship between life expectancy and deprivation, and to understand the root causes of this huge gap, we must first look to the wider context. Residents in Harrow Road experience much higher levels of multiple disadvantage than residents elsewhere in Westminster. Households in Harrow Road, on average, earn £10,000 less than residents elsewhere in Westminster. 28% of residents in Harrow Road have long-term health problems or disabilities, and in addition, Harrow Road has some of the highest rates of child poverty in the city. If we are to tackle persistent health inequalities in Harrow Road and in the wider North Paddington area, we must look at the wider social determinants of health. Residents need meaningful work opportunities, better housing, more opportunities to come together, to foster social inclusion and to get the best education possible. And this is what we're doing through the North Paddington programme. Phase 1 of the programme has primarily been about building trust with the community and strengthening relationships between council officers, the council as an institution, and our communities across North Paddington. In this phase, we've prioritised hearing residents and giving them the time and space to tell us what they think they need in the area. To date, we've delivered several projects in Harrow Road. For example, we've helped to lower energy bills and provide warmer housing for residents across North Paddington by retrofitting 300 social rent homes. We've launched a suite of activities to create alternative routes into employment for young people through skills and training and apprenticeships, including the Digital Dash programme, which is seeing young people gain valuable work experience with huge tech companies in Westminster. And we've boosted community cohesion with a Global Majority Grants programme that has funded 13 local projects focused on bringing communities in North Paddington together. In Harrow Road specifically, work has started on a shopfront improvement scheme, which will bring more footfall to the high streets and subsequently more jobs for residents in the area. We've reopened Maida Hill Market and made significant public realm improvements to the area. And we're soon starting work on refurbishing the much-loved community assets, including the Lidford Community Hall, so that residents have more places to connect with each other. Our Community Priorities programme has also gotten a boost in the North Paddington area. One of the projects in Harrow Road, which is currently being delivered, is the Elderly African Caribbean Health and Wellbeing project, delivered by the Pepperpot Centre at Wetch, funded by the council. And we've also, you're right to talk about how progress will be measured. We've also commissioned a social value consultancy to review the first phase of the programme, and their report has provided valuable, actionable recommendations that have been embedded into the programme as we move into phase 2. I spoke earlier about how we're engaging with communities and will continue to do so to make sure that we're moving in the right direction and getting things right. And our focus will remain on delivering meaningful improvements to residents who live and work in the area, so that they can enjoy a safer, healthier and more economically secure future. I'm really pleased that Councillor Hook is on the North Paddington Partnership Board and will continue to bring her insights and experience to the programme.
Thank you. That concludes this item. We now move on to the remaining agenda items, party business and reports for full council. The topics selected for debate and the names of those down to speak were tabled on the order paper sent out to all of you earlier this week. Each speaker has up to 5 minutes. agenda item 10, party business. As both groups selected topics relating to crime and antisocial behaviour in Westminster as their business this evening, we have a single debate on this issue as set out in the order paper. So, without further ado, I now call on Councillor Adam Hugg to open the debate.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. For many years, antisocial behaviour has been one of the most pressing issues affecting our communities across Westminster. It undermines our sense of safety, degrades our ability to enjoy our great public spaces, and crucially pays on some of the society's most vulnerable people. The root causes of ASB and criminality are many, some of which have been with us for decades and will sadly be with us for many more, but others which are clearly the consequences of failures of public policy and the impacts of austerity over the last 14 years, from homelessness to police cuts to mental health. Like their colleagues in government, the previous Conservative administration talked tough on this issue, but they cut. The last administration cut the number of permanent city inspectors, oversaw an underperforming noise service and provided a report it function with decades out of date. Their 2022 plan to cut black bin bag collections to once a week risked dirtier streets, so we scrapped it when we came in. They let the CCTV network wither on the vine to the point of uselessness and then scrapped it to save on the running costs in 2016-17, providing a small amount to the police and a heady, but their policy was a result of a heady mix of underinvestment and their own government's austerity. Labour are doing things differently. And I'm sure you do not mind me, do not tire of me reminding you that this administration has delivered a new CCTV system focused on local priorities. Our residents are recognising that the new system are already making a difference in many areas, supporting our officers and the police, helping prevent incidents, secure arrests, protect our residential communities and target our resources. As Councillor Lester said, with over 70 cameras in place and the 30 more rolled out by March, we have soon deployed fully our 100 cameras we announced last year. Thanks to the work of Councillor Sandquist, that we've already heard, and her digital team, we finally have a report-it system worthy of our residents, making it easier to report antisocial behaviour and other local issues. And we know illegal and poorly managed short-term lets can make Westminster's residents' lives miserable with ASB and noise issues, which is why, when we came in, we got to grips with a short-term lets enforcement team that wasn't fulfilling its potential. And it's now cracking down on better on illegal nightly lettings and more quickly resolving cases within the constraints posed by the Conservatives' disastrous 2015 regulation. The short lets team works with our empty homes officers, city inspectors and environmental health team to take a whole council approach to enforcement. But we know that we can do more, which is why I'm delighted to announce that we are now doubling the size of the short lets team that we inherited. As the government, ultimately you had two. We're going to have four. But the point is, while the government makes long overdue progress on regulating the sector, that should come in the months to come, which will really give us the tools to act and hopefully a revenue stream to further expand the team to crack down on this. Ultimately, Brandon Lewis has a lot of responsibility for his decisions in 2015, and our residents have paid the price. But we are acting. We're currently working with the Met to get more police deployed out on our streets to tackle crime and ASB. And when we'll be reporting back on next steps in that over the next couple of months. And when we took power in 2022, we have reformed the city inspector function and ASB response to make it more effective. And one of the things we've done is looking at how to make the noise team more productive, to improve its ability to investigate and truly resolve issues, which is, again, why I'm delighted to announce that in our upcoming budget, we will fund a 20% expansion in the noise team to help more people have a good night's sleep. And last week, I announced the launch of our new street-based intervention team, an integrated team of 6 officers, 3 city inspectors, 2 rough sleeping coordinators, and an ASB coordinator, who are going to be tackling issues on our streets during the day caused by a small group of people who are causing problems for everyone else, and the drug dealers who prey on our street community. This team has been deployed in the hotspot areas in and around Victoria, where it will remain until real progress is delivered and sustained, before its remit is expanded to address other areas with similar challenges within this type of antisocial behaviour. The multidisciplinary approach that we're taking is the way forward to tackle entrenched problems, working in partnership with our existing resources and working with the voluntary sector and residents groups. We're utilising the footage from the 12 CCTV cameras already deployed in the Victoria area, with 2 more to come next month. And this proactive approach is joined up with over £2 million extra investment to tackle rough sleeping in our borough. And it's this extra capacity that's been provided in Victoria that's enabling the council to move forward with the deployment of a public spaces protection order this spring to tackle antisocial behaviour such as street drinking, drug use and aggressive begging and public urination in that area. Westminster has historically used these powers in a very limited way, such as on Westminster Bridge, on supercars and loose dogs in very limited areas, because without dedicated resources to help deliver on their objectives, these can sometimes be more rhetorical than practical. We will take a considered approach to their use going forwards, looking to expand their use when we're able to make clear with the public about what new resources will be made available to make them work. And as we move towards the budget, we will provide further resources to provide greater support to tackling antisocial behaviour across Westminster.
Thank you, Councillor.
So this is absolutely important. Tackling antisocial behaviour is not just about enforcing, it's tackling, supporting vulnerable people, and this council has a joined-up approach to tackling the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can everyone hear me? Exactly a year ago, we called for a debate on tackling crime and antisocial behaviour in Westminster, and we've called it again today because crime in ASB continues to rise across the city. Many crime surveys now put Westminster as the most dangerous part of the country. And it's not surprising when the Mayor, the Labour Mayor, Sadiq Khan, who's been responsible for policing London for almost 9 years, seems to have given up on controlling crime. His highlight of 2024 was wasting £6.3 million renaming overground lines. And look how long it took him to remove the criminal gangs sleeping rough and selling drugs on TfL property on Park Lane. And as we heard, there are still tent sitters all over TfL land and across Westminster. We all know we have a serious crime and ASB problem here in Westminster. The two wards of St James's and West End probably do bear the brunt of this in terms of volume, but there are different problems there, patterns. This evening, we want to ensure that the rest of Westminster is not left behind. My colleagues will talk about some of the horrendous problems in their local areas and high streets, and all of us see so much of this close to City Hall and Victoria, and what should be done. Many people feel that a lot of crime, shoplifting, mobile phone theft, drug dealing, is effectively legal. Much of the crime is committed by well-organised gangs taking advantage of the impotence inertia of London's Police and Crime Commissioner. We all know the police are outnumbered and criminals are being let out of prison early. That's if they even get as far as the magistrates' court, as the proportion of crimes resulting in a charge or summons has been decreasing. So there is little deterrent anymore. And the crime stats we read are just the tip of the iceberg because of serious underreporting. On top of this, the Met have recently announced big cuts and changes, and I want to focus a bit on some changes proposed to youth policing to remove safer schools officers from our secondary schools at a time of chronic youth violence. This is another example of the Mayor Khan imposing change on local people and local authorities without proper consultation or consideration. Apparently, these SSOs are to be redeployed as ward officers, but will they work exclusively in their ward, or will they be drafted away to give aid to manage protests and crowds? Will their shifts follow the school day? And how will important intelligence gathering and partnerships with school communities and families be impacted? In Abbey Road, we've worked closely with officers from the council, the schools and the police, and we know that having a schools officer inside the schools has really helped to reduce and deter some of the concerning theft and robberies that we've seen in the St John's Wood, particularly on part of the Finchley Road. Some members here may recall me raising this as a concern at a planning meeting, as one of the schools, the Beechcroft Alternative Provision School, is subject to a safety management plan as a condition of operation, and this condition is now in jeopardy. Heads of secondary schools across Westminster are concerned about the impacts of this change on pupil safety, given some of the horrendous incidents that have taken place near our schools, and just the general lack of detail about what's going on. We do welcome the reintroduction of frontline ASB unit to support ward officers and PCSOs, but we already had this with the Integrated Street Engagement Unit set up under the previous Conservative administration. Obviously, we hope the new unit will alleviate pressures on local teams, but what a waste of time and money when the council could have just built upon the existing resource if they wanted to change it. After long delays, many wards do now have CCTV coverage, but we don't know how much action enforcement has taken place from incidents captured. How effective is this CCTV? And retailers on all our high streets are suffering a triple whammy from increased international insurance, decline in footfall after COVID, plus increasing attacks and raids by gangs of professional shoplifters. There is a gender-based violence dimension to this too, as majority of retail workers are female. To conclude, ensuring our community is safe is non-negotiable. This is what really matters to residents and businesses of Westminster. Councils do have powers and levers to tackle crime in ASB through planning, licensing, housing, and in addition to the public protection teams. So we expect the Labour administration to use those powers more effectively and robustly and join us in standing up for Westminster by demanding more resources and more police on our streets and hold the Mayor to account. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Aisha Less. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, it's clear that everyone in this chamber knows how important safety is to our residents. We all want people to feel safe, whether they live here, visiting or working in the area. However, we know that there are some areas where residents do not feel safe. Adam has already outlined the street-based intervention team we've launched in the Victoria area. I'll be monitoring its work closely to ensure it's targeting the right places. Lord Mayor, while it's clear that the Victoria area has complex issues, we're also lucky to have a strong local partnership, not just with the police, but with local outreach organisations and our private partnerships. They're out regularly speaking to people and understanding their needs and issues. It's important that where people don't engage and are causing a nuisance, we're able to crack down on this behaviour. That's what our teams already do and what the street-based intervention team will be able to really accelerate. Lord Mayor, this administration has made the decision to reinvest in our local CCTV network. Adam and Caroline have already outlined their issues and their concerns and the successes, as Adam has outlined already, that our CCTV programme has already implemented in our city. When it comes to placing cameras, we listen to the people who know their area best, the residents and the ward councillors. We place each camera for up to 6 months, then review its effectiveness. CCTV is not a silver bullet. And just in response to Caroline's last statement, in December alone, we have captured 119 incidents on our CCTV cameras. 32 footage requests were made, and 9 known arrests have taken place so far. In December 2024. In 1 month. So it is clear that the cameras are already making a very positive impact for our residents and our businesses and our city. A council camera close to Victoria Station caught an offender dealing crack cocaine. After the police requested this footage, it resulted in an arrest. And when the same camera picked up 2 people starting a fire in the early hours of the morning, this was spotted live by the monitoring room. They contacted the police immediately, leading to the men being arrested. Council cameras across the borough are making a massive difference, both in stopping live incidents as they occur and in supplying vital evidence to the police. We'll continue to invest in hotspot areas like the West End, making use of developer contributions where we can. Lord Mayor, lots of people are invested in making our city great, while the council has powers available to it. There's only so much we can do alone. I know that the residents and businesses were affected by the encampments in Park Lane area over the summer and in the autumn around the Westway. It is upsetting to see people sleeping in tents, but the council and our partners did everything possible to engage with them. When this didn't work, we turned to enforcement action and finally got a court order. I know it came after 9 months, but we got there in the end. But we'll continue to monitor the situation to ensure that all areas will remain safe, and we will continue to work with the TfL and
But not the Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. We'll continue to work with the TfL as the land belongs to them. Lord Mayor, I'm pleased that we'll soon be publishing Westminster After Dark for consultation with the public. This is our flagship policy for anyone in Westminster between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. whether a resident, visitor or worker. It's important to me that we get the balance right, ensuring we have a thriving nighttime environment where proactively taking measures to reduce crime in ASB. Enforcement is a key part of this. We're looking at all powers available to us to crack down on ASB. This might be through a public space protection order. As we've all heard, we've just renewed our PCPO on nuisance vehicles in the West End, and we have other PSPOs in place for issues like dog fouling, street gambling. We'll also be looking at new area specifics for other PSPOs to tackle our ASB hotspots, along with potential expansion of our existing nuisance vehicles. Either way, I feel confident that with our street-based intervention team, ongoing investment in CCTV and strong local partnerships, we'll soon see real improvements. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. It's disgraceful that on the walk down Victoria Street to the council building, a walk that many officers do every day, you pass people slumped or sitting frozen, having just taken a legal drug. As I mentioned in my last speech, despite the sleeping bags, these people may not be homeless. They may not even be sleeping rough. They are, however, having their lives ruined by criminals who have no care for their welfare and are selling them illegal substances. The fact that this is happening on the main street of one of the best-run local authorities in the country, with one of the top police forces in the world, is terrible. Yes, it's unpleasant for us to walk past and often intimidating. A resident living on Vauxhall Bridge Road said to me last week she's now scared to go out after dark. People walk by with averted eyes. Yesterday, when I walked past, they were young men whose lives are being wasted away on a dirty London street because we allow these pernicious drug dealers to sell them poison. Allowing this behaviour to be open and public on our main streets makes it seem acceptable. I can tell you that if this criminal behaviour is visible on our main streets, it's also happening in the nooks and crannies around our wards. The residents of another street last week reported dealing to me on their street, and as I said in this chamber last time, Councillor Harvey and I get reports of dealers in all types of housing, from social to the most expensive. I fear if we do not do everything that we can to stop this increase in blatant public criminality, our current pride that most people on our streets suffering from alcohol and drug misuse have not got local connections and were not failed by our systems will no longer be the case. As our ward panel chair says, these things need to be nipped in the bud. The absolute normalisation of drug dealing on the streets is not the example we should be showing our young people. Growing up in London, drugs were always around. From the girl in my first year at secondary school sniffing glue to people smoking weed at parties. It was never my scene. However, drugs were not being openly sold on our main streets multiple times a day and night, and they were, and as they are now on Victoria Street and Vauxhall Bridge Road. And this behaviour has increased exponentially recently. We need more police resource for sure. I understand from our Met Safe Neighbourhood team that they have made more arrests in our area than there have been any other arrests in other parts of Westminster. Sadly, this is still not enough, given the state of the streets. I call on the Lord Mayor via our AM, our Assembly member, to provide us with at least double the police presence we have now. There is no excuse. There are no more excuses. Cameras are good, but unless we have one covering every street, I fear that's not the answer. And a camera on every street brings other issues. Look at Hong Kong. As residents say to me all the time, we need police and people walking the streets and reporting and arrests being made. As I said in my last speech to this chamber, every council officer should be tasked with helping the police, as our officers are on our streets every day. When I was first a councillor, we had ward walks with officers and partners every month. Our CEO came out once a year. These do need to be reinstated. Things are much worse now, and ward walks are needed more than ever. The council and the mayor's priority should be having streets where people feel safe and the vulnerable are not preyed upon. There was a Labour minister who said, and I paraphrase, that without defence spending, there is no NHS, no schools, no social care. It's all ashes. I'm going to say that without taking back our streets from the current open criminality, there will not be the fairer Westminster for which we are all striving.
Councillor, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Lisa Begum. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, rough sleeping in Westminster is complex. There is no single approach or silver bullet to solving this issue. As my colleagues have outlined, there are some rough sleepers who engage in ASB, which can make life unpleasant for local residents. But many of them have ended up on our streets as a place of last resort. Lord Mayor, we have been actively investing in our support for rough sleepers, even as the numbers have steadily increased. During the pandemic, there was a concerted effort across London to help people off the streets. But in the years that followed, government support ebbed away, despite the cost of living crisis. I'm extremely pleased that the new government has decided to invest in tackling rough sleeping. Westminster has been allocated £6.4 million, which will be investing across rough sleeping and temporary accommodation. Lord Mayor, we have strong partnerships in place to support rough sleepers. We work closely with the NHS, our public health team, and adult social care to support rough sleepers who have complex health needs, particularly during the winter months. The people sleeping rough in Westminster have different needs, different backgrounds, and different reasons for coming to central London. Many of them are transient and only stay a few nights before moving on. Many have pre-existing relationships with other boroughs or parts of the country, and many of them have complex mental and physical health issues. Engaging with them is not always easy and can take several outreach visits. We have a special service for rough sleepers who are harder to house. They're able to access health checks from specialist nurses, as well as specialist drug and alcohol support, and even immigration advice and access to employment services. When the weather outside is particularly harsh, the Mayor of London activates the severe weather protocol. In Westminster, this triggers the release of an extra 280 beds and safe spaces. We can also use these spaces when there is particularly high demand. Lord Mayor, I want to be clear. Our interventions in Victoria are targeted there due to the number of people sleeping rough in that area. But it's not about moving people on, pushing them to another part of London and washing our hands off them. It's about supporting them in ways that will truly help. While my colleagues are right to use enforcement powers at their disposal and crack down on ASB, I want to be clear how vulnerable many of these people are and how important it is to provide them with targeted, trauma-informed support. This is not a swift process. It's about enforcement and support, working together to move people off the streets. As I said at the start, Lord Mayor, there is no silver bullet to solving this issue. It will not happen overnight. But with the right tools in place and with the extra funding in place, I'm confident we're in a good position. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Ed Pitford.
We are losing control of this city. We are breaking records for phone theft. Theft from shops is brazen. And in my ward, which includes Victoria Station and Vauxhall Bridge Road, theft from person is up 45% on a rolling 90-day period.
You can't police them all on your own.
I believe the cause of the issue is people thinking that they can act with impunity, and social media enables this message to spread and spread fast. We haven't just lost control of the city, we've lost control of the narrative. People need to believe that they will be caught. They need to believe that they will be punished. They need to believe that someone is in control. We all know that the council does not control the Met Police. That would be the Labour Mayor through his role as Police Commissioner.
We all know that the Council does not set national policing policy. That would be the Labour government through the Home Office. But this Labour-controlled Council has a role to play, using the powers it does have for the benefit of all residents, businesses and visitors. How do officers view your stance on crime and antisocial behaviour? Is it zero tolerance, or do you see every culprit as a victim? A victim that they may well be, but we all need to be in a system with clear rules and consequences. And the support for people can be in addition to and not instead of law and order. Yes, we need more housing and mental health support, but we don't have it right now and need to accept that and solve the problem we have. How do citizens in Westminster view your stance on crime and antisocial behaviour? I'd bet they don't know who is in charge, let alone what their views are. We need to better publicise our policies, and when enforcement action is taken, we need to make that heard so that people know we don't stand for this behaviour in our city. Accepting that the police are underfunded, undersupported and undermanned, let's stop relying on them and use the powers we have been granted as a council to help ease their burden. Our officers need to be issuing more community protection notices. It should not take over 4 months to remove a caravan from a resident's parking bay. We should be coordinating with police and rough sleeping organisations and leading the response. Enabling people to sleep in tents is not helping them. They need tougher love than this. Tents have no sanitation facilities, and people residing in them need a firmer stance to help them get their lives back on track. When life gets on top of you, sometimes you need the authorities to enact their duty of care. I have certainly gone through times in my life when I haven't been acting in my own best interest and have needed friends or family to step in. No one thanks the teacher who lets them fail their exams. So yes, I am anti-tent. Rough sleeping may have been decriminalised, but that doesn't mean we should be allowing it to happen. Sometimes people choose to do the wrong thing. Not everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt or can continue to blame a difficult past. They have agency and must be accountable for their actions. I know that people in this room stand up for what they believe in every day, and now more than ever, we need to do just that. We need to lead by example and ask our officers to do the same. At this point, I want to mention the residents of Eccleston Square, who are a prime example of people taking responsibility for their community. They deal firsthand with drug dealing and antisocial behaviour, but they are not taking it lying down. They report the issues despite the painful process. They gather the evidence the police require, and together they are standing up to crime. We have some great officers supporting the community in their efforts, and we need the Labour administration to throw their weight behind them with sufficient resources that they feel safe to intervene. People in our communities are putting themselves at risk every day to do the right thing. The person reporting the shouting late at night, the person reporting the violent dog, the person taking a picture of a drug deal. And when they look over their shoulder, the council should be right behind them to back them up. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We've heard a lot of words from the party opposite tonight, but I have to say, all the action comes from this side of the chamber. Our 2022 election manifesto promised action to restore the council's CCTV network, scrapped by the Conservatives, and that's what we have done in all parts of Westminster. Councillor Pip Ford wants us to lead by action. That's what we're doing. Lead by example. Since the new CCTV cameras were installed in all over Westminster hotspots, around the Edgware Road in Hyde Park and Marylebone wards, these have helped to catch and deter those responsible for crime and antisocial behaviour. How effective have they been? Asked Councillor Sargent. Well, in Burwood Place, an aggressive male was identified and the police responded. A known drug user was identified and moved on by the police. The police arrested an individual for criminal damage on Portchester Place. An individual was identified with potential stolen goods and his movements were monitored. Across the road in Crawford Place, an attempted burglary was filmed and 3 suspects were arrested. Incidents of begging were detected and a distressed female was given help. We made promises, we delivered, and we're getting results. We're getting results elsewhere as well. Our election manifesto also promised to improve our public toilets, and I'm pleased to announce that the refurbished Victoria Embankment Gardens toilets will be opened in February. This is the first of 8 toilets we are completely refurbishing over the next 18 months at a cost of nearly £13 million. That's new toilet fittings, new hand basins, new electrics, new tiling, new flooring, and all the refurbished toilets will be staffed and all will have CCTV cameras, all aimed at improving security and reducing antisocial behaviour. We've already refurbished the toilets in St John's Wood, at Paddington Street and Queensway. We've reopened the closed Church Street toilets, and we're installing additional toilets at Maida Hill Market. I've also asked the public toilets team to look at sites identified by the Soho Neighbourhood Forum study to see if any can be pursued as potential sites for new toilets. And finally, Lord Mayor, at the Scrutiny Committee recently, Councillor Imanales stressed the importance of good lighting levels outside public toilets to ensure the safety and security of women and girls using those toilets at night. And I've asked the team to survey street lighting outside all our public toilets to ensure that we have sufficient lighting and that lighting levels are of sufficient intensity. Lord Mayor, the Conservatives, as we've seen tonight, sneer and moan about things. The Conservatives cut vital services and close public toilets. Labour has reversed that sad and miserable decline because my final words in this portfolio is we get things done.
Lord Mayor, steady on, steady on. Have you finished, Councillor de Mildenberg? I thought that was it.
No. I've got a minute left.
Have you got an encore?
I've got a minute left. I just want to use this a few seconds. I want to thank all the officers who I've worked with over the past 2.5 years, some of the best officers you'll find anywhere in local government, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with them, whether they be in the highways, in the parking, in the public realm, in the public toilets, flood prevention, the mortuary, so many more. The tree officers who have helped me and my colleagues navigate the difficulties of taking control of a place like Westminster. I've enjoyed it. I want to thank my colleagues for their support, and but you've not heard the last of me.
Thank you. Well, I thank you for that, Councillor de Mildenberg. Councillor Barnes, that's not, the floor's not yours. I just want to say thank you for that, and I think members on both sides of the chamber would echo those sentiments about officers. So thank you for that. Councillor James Small-Edwards.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The first responsibility of any elected official is to keep those that they have been elected to serve safe. So I'm really glad that we're having this important debate tonight. It's undoubtedly the case that the Met has endured a difficult decade and a half. Since 2012, over £1 billion of central government funding was cut in real terms from the Met Police budget. And unsurprisingly, this has led to less neighbourhood police presence and our residents feeling less safe. During that same period, the previous Mayor of London also cut his share of the police budget by 28% in real terms. By contrast, since coming to office, the current Mayor has more than doubled the Met's police budget from City Hall. This investment, coupled with the simultaneous real terms cuts from the previous government, has seen the proportion of the Met's budget that comes from the Mayor rise from 18 to 25%. As well as doubling the Met's funding, during his time in office, the Mayor has also introduced London's first Victims Commissioner, set up the Violence Reduction Unit, and put 1,300 more neighbourhood police officers on our streets. And these changes have made a difference. Gun crime, down. Homicides, down. Burglary, down. and all this at a time when crime has been rising nationally. Indeed, some who like to talk down our city talk of it as a uniquely dangerous and frightening place within Britain. But how supported is this by the evidence? In short, not very. According to the ONS, last year, the proportional murder rate in London was lower than that of Bedfordshire, Cleveland, Merseyside, West Mercia, South Yorkshire, Humberside and Northumbria. Whilst lots has been done, there is ultimately a lot more for the new government and the Mayor to do. There's still not enough of a neighbourhood police presence in Westminster. Organised crime gangs are lifting phones out of people's hands. Women are not as safe on our streets as they should be, and too many young Londoners are having their lives taken at the hands of other young Londoners. But I'm glad that the government, the Mayor and this council are introducing bold policies aimed at tackling these issues and others head-on. The government moved quickly to make it illegal to own a zombie knife and to repeal the legislation which meant many shoplifters were getting away with stealing goods valued under £200. More recently, the government have increased the amount the Met receives through the Capital City grant by £65 million, and the Mayor will be providing an additional £54 million to the Met in his budget. I'm also glad that alongside the council, the Mayor is investing in our CCTV network, with more cameras being deployed at bus shelters in Westminster and on the Central and Piccadilly lines. This will be helpful in combating a wide range of crimes, but particularly helpful in combating the scourge of violence against women and girls. The public sector working in silo is not enough to stop all crime. A partnership with the private sector is essential to stopping certain forms of crime. That's why it was good to see the Mayor working with Google to announce an anti-theft lock on their devices, which is aimed at protecting against bank fraud. Similarly, the new iOS 18 software update will make it substantially more difficult for iPhones to be broken down for their parts. These measures will be essential to breaking the economic model that underpins the phone thefts that are being committed in Westminster. And whilst work is rightly being done and will continue to be done to tackle the scourge of crime and the horrors that it inflicts on victims, work rightly has also been done and will continue to be done to tackle the complex causes of crime too. At the end of 2024, the Mayor's New Deal for Young People mission fulfilled the pledge to provide mentoring to the 100,000 young Londoners most in need of support. And this £34 million investment has coincided with a number of teenage and under 25 murders in London being at their lowest levels since 2012 and 2003, respectively. Ultimately, crime and antisocial behaviour do not exist in a vacuum. In order to deal with the problem long term, just important as investing in our police service is investing in schools, in housing and in youth services. We need to ensure that every young Londoner can see a stable, enjoyable and prosperous future ahead of them, so they have no desire to turn to crime. And for that reason, I'm glad to see this council, this Mayor and this government having an iron focus both on combating crime and on combating its complex causes. Thank you.
Councillor Leila Cunningham.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm actually slightly speechless by what I've just heard from the other side. It's not facts. There are young boys dying every day on our streets, and for you to be blind to that as the Assembly member is shameful.
I said too many young people
You
were
do
dying on our
not
streets.
acknowledge the rise in knife crime amongst our youth on London streets, and that is a direct result of the Mayor.
I said too many
Anyway,
young
I'll
people
get
are
to my
dying on our
speech.
streets.
Lord Mayor, I speak today not only on behalf of the residents of Lancaster Gate.
I don't think you listened to what I said.
Lord Mayor, I speak today not only on behalf of the residents of Lancaster Gate, but as a parent, a taxpayer, and someone who is concerned about the state of my community. I also speak for those who have started their businesses in my ward, hiring people and creating opportunity for others. One of the most socially responsible things you can do, an act of public service as noble as any other. Yet, they are rewarded with daily violent thefts, unanswered police calls, a daily feeling of dread, and the prospect of shutting up shop. Now, the party opposite seems to have adopted the old saying of keep calm and carry on. But that's not how this works, and it's not how the Conservatives work. Criminals are opportunistic, and if security fails, as it has under your leadership of London, sadly, opportunity always knocks. Let me be clear. The first duty of government, any government, even local government, is to protect the public. And right now, that protection is failing. This isn't a one-off problem. It is a systemic issue in London. Antisocial behaviour is becoming more common, more visible, and more damaging. From intimidation to loitering to public drunkenness and even defecation, it's eroding the sense of safety and decency in our community. And frankly, this shouldn't be happening. It seems that in London, under Labour, as taxes rise, our safety declines. It doesn't add up. And Lord Mayor, this has never been a question of resources. It has always been a question of priorities. We know that the Labour Mayor has never prioritised our safety. But today, right here, the party opposite can show that they do. I am asking them to implement a PS... Can you just be quiet? I am asking them to implement a PSPO, Public Spaces Protection Order, in Lancaster Gate. It's a straight... Are you going to let me speak, or do you want to give... Shall I give you the mic? Stand up. Yeah. It's a straightforward tool that allows the council to step in and address the behaviours that are causing the most harm to our community. Implementing a PSPO is about safeguarding the public. If the council is really serious about its role in protecting residents of Lancaster Gate, then they must commit today, here, to take the action that is needed. No one should expect to walk outside their front door and feel nervous about their children walking to school or their elderly neighbour making their way to the shop. To ignore this is a dereliction of government duty, and the time to act is now. So I ask the council to step up, for once, and for once prioritise the safety of residents and implement a PSPO in Lancaster Gate. We've paid our taxes, we've done our part, now it's time to do yours. This is what I'm in politics for, to make a difference, to change things for the better. And this is Labour's chance to show that they are too.
Councillor Ellie Ormsby, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So, when antisocial behaviour and crime occur, it is often directed at individuals who are already vulnerable in our communities and live in the most deprived areas. It's therefore an issue we have always championed as a key pillar of our Fairer Westminster strategy. And funnily enough, I'd like to talk about how it's benefited my ward, Lancaster Gate. Nevertheless, I must first marvel at the collective amnesia the minority party seem to be suffering from today. They speak as if they've played no part in the issues that we have discussed. However, I'm here to jog their memories. The previous Labour government took a holistic approach to crime and antisocial behaviour, while increasing policing numbers to record level and investing in our criminal justice system. They also recognised that without good housing, good education, good prospects and fair access to opportunities, people are more likely to turn to crime and ASB. That's right, being tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime resulted in it steadily dropping to the lowest rates in a generation when the last Labour government left office in 2010. But the last 15 years have seen crime and ASB levels increase to unprecedented rates nationally, while convictions have plummeted. And this is no accident, but the result of the previous Conservative government's choices to hollow out everything from the police, the courts, probation, rehabilitation services in their reckless pursuit of austerity politics. As already alluded to, this short-sighted austerity approach was copied locally by our Tories in Westminster City Council. However, instead of admitting their own mistakes, they've locally been advocating for dangerous vigilante-style direct action, campaigning for private dog security on our housing estates with no accountability, and PSPOs without actually understanding the necessary wraparound to make it a reality. In Lancaster Gate, however, we've been quietly getting on with the job and making a difference. Lancaster Gate was one of the first wards in Westminster to benefit from this administration's flagship CCTV programme, a programme which was only made necessary after the previous Conservative council turned all the cameras off. We have 4 new cameras situated in ASB hotspots, including in targeted locations in response to a resident speeding petition, and there are more cameras in the pipeline. We're also grateful that the Hallfield estate was the first estate in the borough to benefit from roaming security in an initial pilot. The security has been visiting the estate multiple times a week, patrol the area, gather intelligence and deter crime. The impact in the Hallfield speaks for itself and has resulted in the scheme being expanded across the borough. We've also been a beneficiary of the council's renewed clampdown on shutting down illegal short-term lets, which so often attract ASB and noise complaints, with several to date closed in our ward to the relief of residents. We've also worked closely with police to share resident intel on suspected brothels to close them down and ensure those who have been working there are safe, as well as countless other instances of liaising with our local police and joining them up with residents. On top of this, we've taken a holistic and community-led approach to crime in ASB and Lancaster Gate. For example, we set up the Queensway Task Force. This group has brought together stakeholders from across our community with a vested interest. Sorry, I stand corrected. Councillor Cunningham has an email. We have actually set up the task group.
I know it's not. You've been told it so many times that you're just oblivious.
Brilliant.
You can't keep saying something to make it true.
You know you're not saying the truth.
Anyway, we digress. I think we can all agree, though, that the group has brought together stakeholders from across our community with a vested interest in making our local high street a safe place to live, shop and visit. This forum has brought together police, TfL, businesses, property owners and resident groups to identify the ASB priorities we and the council team should pursue. And I'm very much looking forward to our next session chaired by Councillor Less, our Cabinet Member for Public Protection, who will be able to support us in taking decisive action on ASB. We've also secured investment to ensure our young people have a place to go, as opposed to being lured into gangs or ASB. One of the first things myself and my fellow ward colleague Councillor Jude did when elected is set up a youth club on the Hallfield estate, which again was only made necessary after the previous Conservative administration cut the funding for it. Our work has continued for a series of council-funded sports clubs for our young residents on the estate. And I know that the policies announced today are going to make even more of a difference. For example, the street-based intervention team will be an asset in tackling issues such as rough sleeping and ASB around Victoria. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what lessons can be learnt from the initial deployment to support the continued resolutions of issues in Lancaster Gate. And I can only be thankful that instead of resident petitions, empty tough talk and grandstanding, this Labour Council is actually taking the steps to make a difference.
Councillor David Harvey, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Why do I think the majority party are sprinting so hard to catch up? Well, let's explore that, shall we? Lord Mayor, picture this. You're elderly, returning to your home only to find someone blocking your front door, demanding you go with them to a cash point. You're a charity outreach worker. You're an expert bringing rough sleepers in to get help. But the prevalence of drug dealing and gang activity on your doorstep means it's not safe for you to do your work. Perhaps you're a commuter and every day you witness regular drug dealing quite clearly run by gangs. Or imagine you're a parent. The horror of seeing a drugged up street person grabbing hold of your small child and trying to run off with it, because that's what happens in my ward, with many other instances too. I think Councillor Small-Edwards needs to look at the actual lived experience of Westminster residents rather than the stats that are so far from the reality many of our residents face.
Alternative facts.
These experiences in my ward and elsewhere point to a really troubling reality, because in this area of community safety, this administration is in danger, as residents have told me, of being in office but not in charge. Now, this stands in such stark contrast to their manifesto pledge, 3 years ago nearly, of keeping our areas safe with more police to tackle knife crime and action on antisocial behaviour. And there is no fairer Westminster if people are not safe. No resident around Victoria expects tranquillity. People don't move there for that. Living beside Victoria Station, next to the Passage, a much-respected charity supporting rough sleepers. But they've never experienced these conditions. They worry for their safety and for street people who are becoming more vulnerable every day, as Councillor Short has pointed out. Some people have already moved away. Others on our estates are looking at swapper schemes to move to other estates elsewhere. That is until those swappers find out what's actually going on with the drug problems in our area. This affects residents, businesses, workers and visitors alike who bring economic vitality to our area. Their choices about visiting, investing or working are inevitably affected by these conditions. So of course we accept the complex challenges facing Westminster, and when we were in power, with things such as our Safer Streets scheme and such as particular schemes I was involved in, we acted quickly and decisively. And what else has gone wrong over the last year or three, it's the duty of this council to do that now. And they have not. Their manifesto is a set of unticked boxes in this area. They've had 3 years in control and residents are suffering. Now, I thank the leader of the majority party for his recent meeting with Councillor Shortland to answer a range of the issues raised by residents. And I thank him for his promises of action. But we have to see that action happen after 3 years in which his colleagues have let down the residents of our area, and there's a chasm between what the administration has talked about and the reality. And no, cameras on their own, even if Councillor de Molkenberg got one for Christmas, are not enough. Far from it. I'll miss you, Paul, by the way. The examples shared throughout this council really do show what's happened and what has changed. It's clear to me that community safety has slipped far down the agenda. Reviewing that 22 manifesto, protecting our residents, well, it's taken 2.5 years to start addressing street cameras. We look at working with the public, another commitment. Well, as our residents will tell you, it hasn't happened. Increases in city inspectors. We can't find any, and most of their shifts are at days that mean much of the afternoon uncovered. It's only oddly at this meeting they've announced changes to their noise measures. And in fact, so much of what they've talked about tonight, admirable as it may well be, on much that we might agree, is only happening now. The late night levy to raise more money for policing, well, that just seems to have disappeared entirely. Unfulfilled pledges. You've got to improve the safety of Westminster residents. It's challenging work and it requires hard decisions. It requires tough decision-making and prioritising. What is most important? Now, Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights points out that everyone has the right to life, liberty and security of person. And I put it to you that when you make choices among your 400-item manifesto, that safety on the streets is fundamental because it's the poorest people, those sleeping rough, those in the street population, those who are vulnerable, elderly, who life has hit hard, who are most vulnerable in these situations, and they most deserve our support, as do the charities that support them. And unless we get this under control, those charities can't do their work, and those vulnerable people will be drawn more and more into pathways from which they could never come back. Lord Mayor, as a council, we owe it to every resident to get this right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I now call on Councillor Adam Hugg to reply.
That's all right. I've no plan to. Thank you. But thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to everyone who has contributed to the important debate. And we know that everyone is responding to the concerns of their residents, even if we may disagree with their analysis. But we've heard some stark reminders tonight of how the years of austerity and neglect, both nationally and locally, have affected our communities. We've cuts to policing, city inspectors and public protection, cuts to mental health and addiction services and housing support. These just didn't happen in isolation. They're a direct result of political choices, both locally and nationally. And what we've heard tonight from this side is about the actions we are taking and we have been taking over the last 2.5 years to really address these challenges. And we're trying to do it as a joined-up response that ensures that the council is tackling the root causes of the problems, but we are on the side of local residents using all the powers within our capabilities to crack down on crime and antisocial behaviour and to work constructively with the police, outreach organisations, the voluntary sectors, our bids and many others. We've talked about the work that we've already talked about how we've increased the number of permanent city inspector roles in the city, and there'll be more discussions on that over the weeks and months ahead. But we have absolutely outlined what we've been doing in the Victoria area to try and make change. There's been talk from the other party about their integrated street unit, which was, I believe, funded for 1 year from 2018-19 and was being wound down as we came into office by the previous administration. As we've outlined here directly, our street-based intervention team is a larger, more holistic team that works with different agencies, well, bringing together city inspectors and anti-rough street coordinators and people who are not just on the street, but can actually case manage the crime that's going on. But that's building on work we have already been doing, particularly over the last couple of months in Victoria because of the pressures that there have been. Over the last 3 months, we've seen 22 targeted arrests by that partnership work between the council and the police, 14 community protection warnings, several crack house premises closures, and amongst many other actions. The council is moving forward with a number of injunctions, I believe over 8, to tackle some of these crises. Obviously, we are investing, as we said, and I'm delighted to have made those 2 announcements today about further investment in our noise team, in our shortlets team. But there will be more announcements to come over the weeks and months ahead. With that in mind, obviously, Councillor Cunningham often speaks as if she woke up in 2022 off a very long sleep, and because she remains completely oblivious to what happened under the previous administration on so many things. Let's be clear. The previous administration did not choose to use the long-standing PSPO powers beyond the extremely limited circumstances that exist today, both because they're not a magic bullet, but also because they were cutting the capacity that would have enabled them to deliver those powers. We are, as we've outlined today, we are now, because we have the boots on the ground to help make this a reality, bringing forward those powers in Victoria, and over the weeks and months ahead, we will outline how we will go further and faster to fully resource our ability to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour on a thing. This is building on the work that we've been already doing to reform and enhance our city inspector function and bring in CCTV. The reality is, you cut the services, we've increased investment. There is a lot done, but there is a lot more to do. No, we know it's tough. We are not pretending there are not real issues around the city. But the reality is, you cut, we're investing. No, we have been investing over the last couple of years, and we will continue to ramp up that more as, frankly, we get greater support from a new incoming Labour government. It's not waving a magic wand for its finances, but it is helping. But we know we have so many years of problems that have built up on our streets, and we know the impact that the previous cuts to police officers around the country have had, both in the Met's capacity to build back up again, under both governments of both parties in recent years. But as I said, we're looking at more avenues to get more police onto our streets, focus on issues of crime and issues of behaviour, and we will be making some more announcements in the weeks and months ahead. But we are very clear. We have done a lot over the last few years to help local residents to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour, as you've heard today. But we are not sitting on our laurels on this. We are focused on what more that we can do. We are not confident that this is the only thing that we can do, because we know there's not more that we are going to do, and we will continue to announce over the coming weeks and months what more we can do to help support our residents in these difficult times. We know the pressures, but Labour is responding to them, whereas when you were in office, you cut.
So we now move to voting on the 2 reports listed on the agenda. The first vote is on the recommendations of the report listed under agenda item 11 and entitled Council Tax Discounts, including Council Tax Reduction Scheme and Council Tax Base. Councillor Devenish, please. The recommendations are deemed to have been moved and seconded. By a show of hands, can I ask for those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining? I declare the recommendations agreed. We now move to the vote on the recommendation of the report listed under agenda item 12 and entitled Appointment of Independent Person. The recommendation is deemed to have been moved and seconded. By a show of hands, can I ask those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining? I declare the recommendation agreed. You'll be pleased to know that concludes the council meeting. Thank you and good night.